Hey, welcome to Manalizing. This is where men talk about the kind of stuff that men don't talk about. Put your hard hat on, get ready for a ride. Here we go. Hey, welcome to Manalizing. I'm Garth Haslam. This interview is with Eddie Villa. Eddie is a crazy, awesome, incredible man. He's one of the people that I am most proud to call friend. I think he's one of the most awesome people on the planet. His wisdom runs deep. And Eddie's big thing is, because he's a strengths coach, he's all about helping people, including me, become who we are and who we should be, and learning who our authentic self is and being that. I owe much to Eddie. I respect Eddie greatly. I'm excited and honored to have him. And here we go.
Let's do it.
Eddie, you're a rock star. You're in my close friends group. You know, I interview guys from pretty much all over the country, and in one case, you know, he's not from the country. But you're inner circle to me. You've been that way for a while, and of course, I met you only because of who my wife is. My I guess that's how I meet everybody. Yeah, they fall in love with my wife, and they go, "Oh yeah, there's Garth. I guess I got to deal with him too." But tell me about you. Um, you've written a book. You are
I've written two books.
you've written two books.
Very proud of that. I'm working on my third now.
I must have ignored one of them. And Julie met you. I guess I'll tell this story because within the doTERRA world,
Yeah.
which is an MLM that I think most everybody's heard of, and which my wife is very much involved in, and which you and your wife are very much involved in, you established yourself very clearly as a rock star. Your thing, from my point of view, and I hope you'll correct me, is that you help people find out what authentic means to them, and you help them be that.
Yep. And with that, they can make all the money they want. They can build all the relationships they want. They can improve their health in any way they want that way. And ultimately have a rock solid belief in who they are. Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Right? Imagine that. You wake up and you just be who you want to be. And you find your life filled with good health, great people, and a lot of money. Right?
Yeah.
A connection, a deeper connection to, for me, this is my partner in crime here. I shouldn't say crime. This is my partner. It's weird to say that. This is my partner right here. And I have, through this desire to be fully authentic, I have developed a more powerful relationship with him than I've ever had. Even after being a baptized member of the church and all that fun stuff, like the real connection happened when I understood how I was infinitely, uniquely created. And it helped me develop. Yeah, infinitely unique is the term that I love to use.
That is a good term to use.
We are something that has never been nor ever will be
created again.
Yeah. Infinitely unique.
It's funny because I talked to you're a strengths coach.
Yes. Among many things, yes.
Among many other things. And so my wife of course, has a few strengths, which amazingly I share with her. You know, the woo, communication. Who would have thought communication would be high, since I have this passion for putting microphones in front of my face?
Yeah.
You know, I find that microphones walk away much less often than friends do.
That's interesting.
And there was a training recently where she had some other people there, and they looked at her and they saw leader, they saw awesome, they saw rock star, and they go, well, I don't have the same strengths as you, so therefore I will never be successful. And Julie did, of course, the same thing. She looks up to her upline and people who are making tens of thousands per month, and she looks at them and she says, well, I'm not the same as them and they're successful, so I must be less than. Mm-hmm. And then you coach people away from that.
We were taught some lies growing up.
We were taught a lot of lies growing up.
Yeah, a few.
Talk to me about that.
So I can probably get this kicked off best when I learned that we like what I love about strengths is it shows that we are infinitely unique because we see that we did you discover that you have 34 strengths,
Mm-hmm.
and those strengths go from 1 through 34 in a very specific order. And in my study of strengths, the order matters. In other words, if you have two people next to each other and they both have the same combination from 1 through 34, but like if you were to change 1 and 2, just shift 1 to 2 and 2 to 1, and then that's the only difference. That creates a gargantuan amount of separation. They become very different just by moving those two strengths. I don't have to go into detail about why, but ultimately that just creates a different shift because our strengths are best used when they're used in order, and that order is a reflection of what we care about. So our strengths are unique. No one has or ever will have that combination of strengths. Then you partner that combination of strengths with an infinitely unique set of experiences from the day we were born. No one has, nor ever will, have experienced life in the way that we have, right? That
Yeah.
means that we have an infinitely unique perspective on anything. So, infinitely unique strengths, infinitely unique perspective means we are something that can never or ever will be duplicated ever, 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 right?
And yet we can all still succeed.
Well, that's the whole point I'm going to get to second.
Okay.
The second thing is our problems. So when we look at our problems, like for example, wanting to be more successful in your business, all right? And when we look at ourselves, we think, okay, I have a problem. And what we were taught as a very young age is that who we are is common, but the problems that we deal with are unique. And what I mean by taught is it's almost like you're not allowed to have problems. Every time, like, I look at the generation. So I'm 47 right now in 2022. My mom and my dad, I see right now, my mom, if she was alive, she'd be in her 90s, roughly 80s, 90s. And I've found that generation was not a very vulnerable generation. It
Not at
was
all.
very much like if you make a mistake, hide it as quickly as possible. There's a lot of family secrets that were hidden, and there's a lot of things whenever I ask questions, people say stop asking questions. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
It's just one of those things where it's just like it feels like vulnerability is not a thing. You're not allowed to make mistakes. Um, so because we're not allowed to have mistakes, that means that any mistake you have would be a unique one, something different. And so what we do is we go through life thinking that who we are is common and our problems are unique. Like, they're successful and there's no way they could have ever gone through the problems that I have gone through when it comes to growing my business. And so, since the problems I'm experiencing are unique and who I am is common, then it looks like I'm not going to be as successful at them who are very special and don't have my problem. There's
Right.
just a whole mess of this whole thing of thinking that who we are is common and our problems are unique and the opposite is true.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where I was going to go is that we're unique. Our problems are very common, especially for men. You
Oh,
know,
yeah,
as
totally.
you mentioned, one of them, we make mistakes and we don't want to admit it, and we're going to cover it up. And if we've got a weakness, this is what I commonly say: if women have an issue, they've got 30 girlfriends to go talk to.
I've seen that.
And
I have seen that. My
and
wife has a very powerful text group that she messages anytime there's a problem,
uh-huh.
and I think, oh, that's interesting. I don't have that. I have some friends, but I don't not like that. That's different. It's fascinating.
and when a man has an issue, he gives himself. I was going to say he's got nobody, but that's the man's fault. We
Yeah,
as
that's a
men, we
perception.
give ourselves nobody. uh I was talking to some people just the other day, sitting in a restaurant. I said, I've got a friend who isn't well liked. A lot of people like to avoid him. And I said, if I was a good friend for him, I would tell him, look, these are the things that you do that annoy people. And if you stop, then maybe people would stop avoiding you. I am not that good a friend. I'm not going to tell them that.
Yeah.
And I think most of us are in that category. You know, we're not good enough friends to be honest with people with each other. And that's our own faults.
Well, I think because we haven't really learned how.
Uh-huh.
It's not easy. It's not easy to just go, you know what, I need to tell this person this when you don't know how. It's really hard. Some people are good at it. Garth, some people are really good at going, you know what, I need to tell you this. You got some green stuff in your tooth. You need to get it out. But some of us are like, we don't know how to do it. So we just look at it. It's sitting there and we don't want to say anything.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? Like some of us just don't know how. We've never learned how. I know I know growing up, I was definitely not the person to go to someone and say, you're doing it wrong. But
Uh-huh.
in my own mind and heart, I'm like looking at you going, you're doing it wrong. You know what I mean? So what I've learned with what I do is that if each and every one of us is infinitely unique, that means that each and every one of us cares about things differently. And because we care about things differently, that means we do things differently. So just because I don't like the way you do something doesn't mean that you don't care about it as much as I do.
Yeah. Let's talk about Eddie. Um, your life goes perfectly. You've never had a problem.
Sure.
And so that's the end of that
Yeah.
conversation, right?
Yeah, everybody. I'm the only person in history who hasn't had a problem. So that makes me an expert. And well, let me just say this. I've never had a problem, and that makes me an expert in solving them
Yeah.
because I
Uh,
don't have any practice.
of course. Yeah. You've never solved one of those.
Yeah, so that makes me an expert. Isn't that funny? How we think people who are good at something never are not experts, like are only experts because they're good at it. Like for me, I would admit, I think I would believe that somebody who's been divorced 6 times is definitely someone I would consult when it comes to marriages. You know what I mean? Like if you've been married 6 times and 5 of those ended in divorce, and you're on the sixth one,
Uh-huh.
I'd want to talk to you. Tell me about marriages from your point of view. And I'm sure a lot of people go, why would you talk to him? He's been married 6 times and he's probably on his sixth divorce or whatever. And I'm like, that's experience, man.
Yeah, that
If you
is
want to
true.
learn how to deal with failure, talk to someone who fails a lot.
It's like that Michael Jordan commercial from way back when. He's like, I've missed this many game-winning free throw shots. I've missed this many
Yeah.
of game-winning three-pointers. I've turned the ball over this many times, and that's why I succeed.
Yeah. And I've learned that's true. So I have no problem with telling people how much I failed because I honestly believe that the only people that I would want to talk to or share or give advice to is people who are giving me credit for my failures, not just for my successes. You know what I
Credit
mean?
for your
Credit.
failures. I love
Absolutely.
credit for
My
your
fault.
failure.
I screwed it up. Or here's what I did wrong. Sometimes it's not always just me, right? Sometimes there are other people involved. But like I'll give you an example. I'll be vulnerable here. I just had a tech. I was off today. We were supposed to record this podcast much earlier, and I got delayed a couple times. And during that delay, I was getting some text messages from somebody who's just frustrated with me right now. And they're frustrated with me because I I made a promise to them that I was going to do something, but it turns out I forgot. Like I completely forgot, and I did the wrong thing. I did the opposite thing, or I just did the wrong thing. And this person sent me like a 4.5 minute voice message explaining to me what happens. Like this person said, literally, this is what happens when you forget, Eddie. This is what happens inside of me. This is a person I work with. Actually, works for me, right?
Uh-huh.
And I love this person dearly. And this person like really means the world to me. Has done a lot of good for what I do. When I'm trying to help the world, this person's right there rocking it with me. And so this person's sharing this frustration they have with me forgetting something. And I'm sitting here and I'm feeling so powerless. And so like how am I screwing this up again? Why is this always happening? So I'm starting to go down this ugly path of just hating who I am, wishing I was better, wishing I was different. And so I'm just listening to the voice message and I'm like getting angry, like I shouldn't have to put up with this and all this other stuff. But the truth is, like I'm failing at this. It doesn't mean I'm a failure though. So that's when I kind of go, okay, dude, this doesn't mean you're a failure. And then I started to think about this and I go, wow, this person cares this much about me to send me a 4.5 minute audio, helping me understand how what I was doing is not helping us. And I started realizing this is not an enemy. This is a very good friend.
This
This is
is a very good friend.
a very good friend.
Here's what I'm seeing from that. Here's somebody who cares about you enough to be that vulnerable. This is somebody that you want to keep very close.
Yeah.
Of all the people on the planet, how many of them are gonna communicate with you in any way? When you do X, I feel Y. If we've got one person on the planet
Mhm.
that will do that for us, we are very lucky.
Oh gosh, yeah. And it took me a minute to realize that, because at first I went down the path of, screw you. What the hell are you talking about? In my head.
Uh-huh.
Right. But then I'm like, okay, well, that's my natural reaction to everything, ego. And then I'm listening. I'm like, okay, I should listen to this. I'm sure there's something important here. And as I'm listening, I start to get emotional and I start to go, look, Eddie, just look for the good here. There's something valuable happening here. What is it? And that's when I saw it, like, she cares.
Well,
And
the
this is something I actually do want to get better at.
yeah, and the
So what's the
alternative,
problem?
which is everybody else on the planet, is that person's going to go, well, yeah, Eddie sucks. This my job sucks. I hate everything about this. I'm going to put the minimum in for Eddie. I'm not going to be dedicated to Eddie or what he's trying to do or the company. I'm just going to draw a paycheck until I can find a different job.
Yeah. And that, I think, honestly, I think that would break my heart more,
Yeah,
way more.
yeah.
Like, I admit I'm not easy to work for at all. In fact, I'm quite difficult. And I frustrate people. I get it. I don't want to. And so that's why I was so grateful. I went from who the hell are you to like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful I have you in my life. And I
Well,
sent them a message and I'm like, just, I want you to know I listened to the voice message. Thank you so much for caring. I'm really thinking hard about the things you said. Can we talk tomorrow?
as her employer, and I'm going to make this a bigger focus, not only as the employer, but anybody. Let's say that
Yeah.
this happens in the
Anybody.
grocery store or with your wife or whatever. As her employer, I'm going to suggest you walk up to her, hand her $100 bill, and say, "Man, thank you.
Thank you for
It,
the training. I needed
here's
it.
here's an award for being the best employee I've had all day long."
Fabulous. That's a great idea.
And
Yeah.
And same thing with the wife, if she feels like she can trust you enough to tell you that there's stuff between your teeth or whatever, uh, man, thank you. And it takes two strong people. It takes that
Yeah.
person has to be strong, and you got to be strong enough to say thank you rather than go to a dark place and say, well, I suck, you suck. You know,
That's a great advice. I would say that's a good way to look at it. If somebody has the strength to bring something like that to you, match their strength with your desire to accept it.
uh-huh.
Oh, that's brilliant. Like,
Yeah,
if they're going to be that strong, then you show up and strong too and say, I accept it. I am so grateful for it. I'm going to work on that. Like, that really means the world to me that you were that strong to come to me. And you don't have to respect the person to respond that way. You do it for you, but come on, man. That's not easy for someone to just come out and say, hey, you're pissing me off.
yeah. Well, and she it tells me also a lot the fact that she was brave enough to do that,
Yeah.
because yeah, 99.9% of the time we don't respect anybody enough to be brave enough to do that, let alone in an employer employee relationship. For all she
Yeah.
knew,
Right.
you were just going to tell her, yeah, well, I'm the boss, so
Or,
sucks to be
or,
you.
or even, I bet she was maybe even worried that what if I said, oh, yeah, well, you know what? You're fired.
Uh,
I could have said that.
you could
And,
have.
and here she is putting at risk, but I'm like, you know what? Honestly, you're getting a promotion.
Uh,
How do I get you closer into my life, into my business?
yeah.
Because I don't want to be around people who are yes people. I want to have a really brilliant idea and I want to say, this is what it is. Oh my gosh. And someone to go, I don't think so. I think it needs to be adjusted here. Okay, tell me where, because I think what we're about to do is make it better. And so maybe people are listening to this podcast, like the last person that gave them some feedback that they didn't quite like, they thought it was criticism, but actually it was love. And that person taking a big chance,
Uh-huh.
you know. And even though like sometimes my wife will do it, and I look and I go, "You just love telling me I'm doing things wrong, don't you?" But the truth is, no, she doesn't love telling me I'm doing things wrong. She loves seeing me be successful.
Uh-huh.
So she loves me being successful so much that she's willing to look like the bad, annoying person who says you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Like I was at Costco and I just got new my eyes checked, and I have to have bifocals, by the way.
Oh, nice.
So I'm there and I'm like, I already know I'm not picking the glasses because, and I realize like, why can't I pick the glasses? Why can't I look at the glasses? Like, it's almost like I'm talking to my wife like she's my mother. Why can't I just pick the glasses I want? Who cares what other people think and so on? She goes, Eddie, but I care. And I'm the one that has to look at your face. You don't have to look at your face. I have to
Uh-huh.
look at your face. So why don't we get glasses that I like? And then I realize how did I get so lucky?
Uh-huh.
I'm even getting emotional right now. How did I get so lucky to be married to you? That you care that much about me?
Wow. And
I'm
it's
feeling the
still,
love a lot today, right now, obviously.
yes, and it's still your choice. I mean, that's something that I learned from you is you are always in control of you. It's your life. It's
Oh
your
hell yeah.
choices.
Yes.
But once you, now that you own that the choices are yours, now you can choose to agree to what the wife wants if you choose to, because
Yeah.
that's a love language for her. Let's talk about a mistake that Eddie made when you were young, somewhere between super young and young.
What do you mean age?
Oh, 5 to 10 years old.
Oh, 5 to 10. Well, between 5 and 7,
Mm-hmm.
I was just looking at the world and not really making a judgment about what the world should or shouldn't be. But right around 8 to 10, I think the biggest mistake I made was um, looking at the way my life was and the people around it and thinking that there was something wrong with it. Oh gosh, how do I phrase this? I watched a lot of television.
Mm-hmm.
So I compared my family to every family I saw on television. I
Well,
think that was probably one of the biggest mistakes I ever made as a kid,
right.
was looking at the TV world and going, why isn't my family like that?
Mm, that's painful.
Yeah, I did that a lot. Like I compared everyone in my family to the people I watched on TV.
And I know
And
you
I
had a big brother that you worshiped, and your dad was not around most of
yeah,
the time.
so my brother was 13 when I was born. So he was the baby until I showed up. And I think, my brother passed away a few years ago. And I think that kind of like put a barrier in our relationship right from day one. And then my dad wasn't around at all for him or my older sisters who were older than him. He was never around at all. For me, he was around sporadically. And there was one period in time where he got real involved in my life. And I was 13 and I was playing baseball. He got so involved in my life during that time that the team called him the team dad. Like teams have team moms,
Right.
where it's usually the moms that are really active. My dad was active just one time in my whole athletic career. I played baseball and basketball. So he was active once for a bit, and my brother played a lot of baseball, and I know my dad wasn't around at all for him. And so seeing that I got a different dad from his perspective, I got a different dad than he did. That put another wedge between us. And then the fact that I idolized him so much. And so I was always following him around, finding ways to be around him and bug him. And if he didn't give me attention, I'd find ways to annoy him to give me attention.
That's your brother. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I spent most of our life trying to get him to be friends with me, essentially.
Right.
Yeah. So my brother, like to me, I thought he was like the cool brother. Like I used to watch Different Strokes, and my brother reminded me of Willis. Now, my brother was very dark skinned. We're both Spanish, Spain Spanish, but my brother was very dark skinned. And I don't know why, but when I was a kid, I just equated him to Willis from Different Strokes. And in the movie, Willis was a super athletic, and my brother was a great basketball player, great baseball player. So I just followed him around as much as I could. And so that was it. My brother was the one. I mean, I compared everybody, but my brother was the one in my head closely matched what I thought was a perfect family member. My dad was the one out of all my family that I saw was the most unalike every father in every TV show I watched, but yet he was the one I most wanted to be like.
What did
So
it?
much so that I imagined it in my head that he was a great dad.
You imagine that. What did it do to you at 5 or 10 years old to realize that your let's start with your dad first,
Mhm.
that your dad was not the dad that the TV said he should be?
It was total denial. Like I remember, and man, if I could draw, I could if I could. This is the way trauma is and traumatic experiences are. I remember laying in my bed. I'm going to try to paint the picture. So I'm laying in my bed. To my left is this tiny little TV. Excuse me, I'm not in my bed. I'm in my parents' bed. So to my left is this little TV that my mom and dad had in their bedroom, and they had a water bed, by the way. So a picture of the water bed.
Oh yeah.
And so to the left is the TV, to the front is a dresser, and then to the right is a closet that's made of some kind of really thin wood material, some kind of paneling. And I picture it. My dad walking in the room, and his eyes are bloodshot red, and his hair is all messy, and he's sort of stumbling a little bit. And I don't know what they're talking about, but I know that they were talking about something that bothered my dad.
Mhm.
And then he gets angry and he raises his voice and he puts his fist through his closet that he built, just right through it.
Through the
Big
paneling.
old hole right through the paneling. And all I remember was putting the pillow over my head and wanting it to go away, like just pretending it's not happening. Like I'm really good at imagining things differently than they actually are happening. I can still do it at 47. I practiced it a lot as a kid.
I think we're all better at that than we want to
Yeah.
admit.
So yeah, I didn't have the same 2020 that most people had, right? So anyway, so I remember putting the pillow over my head and acting like it's not happening. It's not real. And then I would find out later that my dad punched my mom in the face and a few other things, got physical with her, and then got in a fight with my brother afterwards. And I wasn't aware of it because I was in the pillow land, right?
Hmm.
So I wouldn't say it took me a long time to realize that that was the kind of dad he was. Like a real long time. I don't know. I'm not even sure when exactly I did just kind of go, he wasn't a great example of a father. He had some great attributes. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't saying he was all bad. There was a lot of great attributes. It's kind of nice that a son can look at his father and go, "You're a total failure as a father," but you do have some good things.
But you
And he
walk
did.
straight. Yeah.
He did. Yeah, he did have some great things. Like my dad would. My dad was really good at getting odd jobs. He never really worked for anybody, as far as I remember. So he would do a lot of those odd jobs. And what I loved about my dad is there was a couple of times where he would wake me up at like 4 a.m. and say, "We're going to go to Los Angeles. I got to do a couple of jobs, and then we're going to spend the day together." I was like, "Okay, cool." So we lived in a town called El Monte, which is a good hour roughly from the city of Los Angeles. And my dad liked to go to museums. He's like, "Okay, we're going to go. I'm going to do a couple of jobs, and then we're going to go to La Brea Tar Pits, which is a really cool dinosaur museum in Los Angeles."
Right.
And so I got to go with him, and the three different places he went to do odd jobs for, he got them job done about an hour each. Took about 3 hours, and I just hung around, and I got free food, free junk food mostly. But the thing that caught me, that made me go, I want to be just like my dad, was everywhere we went, crowds of people would say, "Hey Eddie, hey Eddie, how you doing? Hey, it's good to see you. Is this your boy? Hey, are you Eddie's boy?" And they would, it was like he was a celebrity
Shoot,
everywhere we went.
that's what
I mean,
people do to you.
yeah, yeah. Well, I picked it up. I was like, I want to be that.
So here's you, young, and you've gone with him, and you got all these people saying, "Well, your dad is awesome," and then you go home, and
Saw
I'm
a different
guessing
dad.
high 90% of the time he's not paying attention to your family.
It's different. Yeah, it's so different.
What did that tell you about you? What were the demons? What did your demons tell you that that meant about you personally and your family?
My theory is that my dad didn't know how to deal with his emotions. That's my theory.
That's what you chose to believe. It wasn't you didn't
I,
go to the
I'm
dark
thinking
place
that
of
now, man. When I was a kid, I just ignored it all.
okay, the kid ignored it. That's
Oh,
what I was
totally.
looking
It
for.
acted like it wasn't happening.
Uh-huh.
I just acted like that wasn't my dad. My dad is something wonderful. This is not real. Do, 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 do. Right. And my mom knew that about me. So she never once said anything bad about my dad, despite the fat lips. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
It, she just didn't. I think she knew I looked at my dad through rose-colored glasses.
Right.
It wasn't until much, much later in my life that I started to have anger with my dad. And then after when he passed away, it took me a long time to deal with my anger with him, a real long time.
So
Uh,
you never went to that dark place of my dad hates me, so I must suck then.
you know what? No, I didn't. I didn't. That's interesting. No, I didn't. In fact, every time he was gone, I would just say he's going to be back. And every time he came back, I just figured that he was going to stay forever. And then when he's gone, he's going to come back. And when he comes back, he's going to stay forever. Kind of like a dog, you know?
Uh-huh.
And it's
Whenever he
interesting.
comes, I'm gonna bounce
I
around.
never took the way he behaved personal. You know what? I'll tell you this. Maybe I did because I've grown up my whole life never really believing that anyone was interested in me. So maybe I did and not realizing it. But I didn't believe my mom was interested in me. I think my mom, I don't think she was interested in me. I had a brother who
And
couldn't
that's
stand
where I
me.
was gonna go next.
Yeah.
Is your brother, you just said he couldn't stand you. He tried to avoid you, to demean you, to get rid of you.
Oh yeah. And if I try to get his attention, he would just do something to get rid of me, like knock me down or punch me or just flat out ignore me. I could be right in front of his face going, dude, and he would act like I'm not there. You know,
And that's kind of what your dad did to the family all of this
I
time
think
as well.
so. I think so. Yeah, looking back on it now, maybe I did. This is the first time I've ever considered that maybe my dad acting the way he did led me to believe nobody was interested in, me. I grew up most of my life feeling like I had to impress people to get them to pay attention to me or even notice me. And the way that a kid goes, the way that a child who wants to be loved or appreciated or even seen can be very dramatic.
Mm,
Like they can take dramatic measures. I took a lot of dramatic measures to get people's attention. And
yeah.
some of
And
them I'm really not proud of.
a lot of those are misbehaviors.
Yeah, in many ways.
So I'm processing this as we speak at the moment too. That's hard for me because I'm also trying to be the podcaster while I'm processing while I'm speaking. If a person feels like he's less than and then he feels like he has to work harder to get somebody to like them, and when you work harder to get somebody to like you, we all know that people can detect that and they're going to be like, I'm out of here, you
Yeah,
know.
you make it worse.
Yeah.
You make it worse. There's a lot of things that I did that I'm just like wow. And then there's some things that I had shame about for a long time. And I mean, one of the things I learned though about the past is that it's impossible to look into the past of the things that we have shame over and not bring our current selves to that. Okay, so I want you to think about this. Like if there's something you did, let's say when you were 7 or 8 or 9 years old, for example, that you had shame or currently have shame over, every time you go into that experience, maybe you even see the experience right here, right now, you are bringing who you currently are into that experience. And
Right.
then you are watching yourself do the same thing you did back then. And I was just talking about this in an interview on Facebook the other day. It was that it's the most unfair thing you can do to yourself is to look at something you've done in the past that you're not proud of and at all, because the only thing you can do is bring who you currently are into that situation. And sometimes I would do it and I would catch myself going, nope, no, like I'll just randomly say out loud, no, no. And my wife, like, what are you talking about? No, oh, nothing. I was just going into a dark place.
Oh, been there, done that.
Nothing.
Identify with that. One of my
Better I
favorite
don't bring it
things
up.
that my demons do to me is they'll bring me back to any one of 1,000 moments in my life where I proved that I was an idiot and a dork and a loser.
Yeah.
And it happens anytime that my mind is in neutral, which is about 70% of the time. And and then the inescapable conclusion is I'm a loser, I'm incapable, I can't, and
Still, like you'll
I
think
should
that
hide. Yeah,
I'm still a loser.
right.
I'm still a loser because here I am doing that thing over again, even though I'm here right now.
So, based on your dad's actions, you concluded that you're worthless. Based on your brother's everything, you had reason to conclude that you're worthless. How about your mom?
My mom is interesting. She ran a board and care home, um, like on the same property as our house.
Uh,
So I want you to imagine like this is the property line, right? And it's basically a big gate, a fence, right?
right.
And there's our house, and then there's the business. And the business was a board and care home for people who were manic depressant, schizophrenic, or elderly. They just had a lot of they needed care. And so my mom she ran the business from our home. So she was always around, always available to me. Anytime I needed anything, she was always there because she was working 24 hours a day. She just worked constantly. And so anytime I needed anything from her, I could just go to her and say, "Hey, I need this." And she would either give it to me or find someone around who worked there to help me get it. Anytime I needed something to eat, I could eat. I could eat at home, or I can go to this place called Jim's Burgers, which was literally a block away from my house. And my mom would give me the money if I wanted to go eat out, or I could eat at home, whatever. Like anything I needed, my mom had. And I think in her way, that was her way of being empathetic or compassionate. But if I needed my mom to be present for anything outside of the house, she never once came to any of it.
None of
Uh,
the baseball games.
Not one baseball game, no basketball games. I played a lot of baseball when I was a kid, and then as I got into high school, I played tons of basketball. And then I got into college and played tons of basketball. And then after basketball was over, I did some other things. And then later in life, when I found out that I had this ability to coach people and guide people and create programs and do events and inspire large groups of people to be who they are and love who they are, I got asked to do an event in Raleigh, North Carolina, and my mom was living 30 minutes away, and I thought this would be the one time she would come. And so I called my sister who was taking care of her, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to be out there. Can you just help her come see what I do?" She never came to my basketball games, never came to my baseball games, never came to anything I do. I'm just asking her to come to this thing because this is really who I am, and I just want my mom to see what I do for a living. And a lot of times I'll even edify my mom in front of a crowd. I'll tell them one of the things my mom was really good at was caring for people who needed help. And in that business, she took care of a lot of people.
Except you.
Well, took care of my needs at home,
Took
but when
care
it
of
came to
your
coming to
needs.
my games and stuff, no, different. So I was the kid who I would walk to the games by myself, play basketball. I could have had 15, 30 points, whatever. I could have been the greatest player on the court. But then after the game was over, backpack on, I'm walking home by myself.
And
Like that
there
was normal
was,
for me.
she hadn't seen anything, so she probably didn't congratulate you on anything,
Right. Oh no, yeah, none of that.
nor support you. Yeah, nor provide any
Not a
positive
this was
feedback.
not a cheerleader. She was not a cheerleader. She was not a hey, you did a good job. That was not a thing my mom did. But like I said, she cared for all the other things. Anytime I needed anything, she got it for me and so on. So when I called her, I went out there and I'm in the hotel room and I call, I go, "Mom, I'm speaking tomorrow. Are you going to be here?" And she goes, "Yes, yes, I'll be there." And so the next day, she was supposed to come stay with me in the hotel room. And that way she could just walk downstairs with me because I was staying in the hotel where I was speaking. And she didn't show up. I called her a bunch of times. She ghosted me. And I was so angry. The next morning I woke up and I was like, that's fine. I rocked the stage. I crushed it, had a great event, did amazing things, flew home. And I just said, forget it. Um, And then after she passed away, my sister, who's of all my siblings, she's the only one that's still around. Our parents are gone. Two of our siblings are gone. It's just me and my older sister. And I was telling her about how angry I was after my mom passed away, that she never came to one thing that I did. Not one. Like if she had just come to one thing, I would have been like, okay, at least you came to one thing, but nothing. And I had so much anger over that. And my sister called me while we were on the phone. She looked me in the eye. She just said, she was selfish. Why haven't you figured that out by now? I said, I guess that's not the mom that I thought I had.
You were using blinders not only with your dad and
My
brother, but
whole
with your
freaking
mom.
life. Yep. All of them. The biggest mistake I did was thinking that what was happening wasn't real. So I made up a story in my head.
Uh-huh.
That was the biggest mistake I made because it caused pain when my
Yeah.
mom wasn't doing the things that I thought she was supposed to be doing. And finally, one day I broke down and cried. And I remember I don't understand why she never came to one thing. It's so weird. I was at the time I was making that comment. I think I was 44 years old, 43 years old. And why is a 43 or 44-year-old man crying because his mom didn't come to his thing?
Because
Like to
mom,
me, I know it because I was living in freaking la la land my whole life. Instead of loving my family for who they were, I was mad at them for not being who I wanted them to be, and I made up a story that my family were the Huxtables. You know what I mean?
oh, yeah. I'm not guilty of that either. Not at all. Yeah, no, I don't wish my family was different than they are. I totally accept them for exactly the
I wish I'd done
broken.
that sooner.
Yeah.
Should have done it sooner. It saved a lot of pain.
Totally accept them for the broken mess that they are. Yeah, that's me. Um, you had blinders on for all of them, and I'm going to say that you waited until you were 40, what, 3, you said, until you were
Finally
finally
decided to live in reality.
well put.
Yeah. Yeah. Come to reality. It's a nicer place, when you actually say, when you accept it. The real world is a lot better than the place that we make it out to be when we just accept it. It doesn't mean we can't change it or make it better. Just accept it for what it is. And then you have the power to make an influence.
Well, now you're giving me advice that I needed to hear, because in my case, yeah, I've got people that I really wish and expect, and that's the problem, to be not how they are.
Yeah.
And once
Yeah. We
I'm
can't
willing,
impact people that way.
yeah, once I'm willing to accept that that's not who they are, then things get a lot easier for me.
Yeah. Totally.
What was there was a younger Eddie who put blinders on and was, yeah, the Huxtables, my family is the Huxtables, even if they're not. Um, what did you learn from that? From having a family that was not the Huxtables. You said that um you didn't blame them, you didn't get mad at them, and you didn't even go telling yourself that you were less than, which I totally would have done. But how did that benefit you?
I think it made me more of an independent thinker. It's my
Uh-huh.
guess. If I were to guess right now,
Uh-huh.
it's made me more of an independent thinker. It's really hard to get me to go with the grain, even when the grain is obviously going in the right direction. I just had this vision of myself. Yeah, this is definitely me. So I used to have Star Wars toys. And after I saw Return of the Jedi, there's a scene in Return of the Jedi where there's a pit called the Sarlacc pit. It's this brown pit with this monster inside of it. And then everybody's fighting above it and they're trying to knock people into the pit, right? So I remember having a bunch of my Star Wars figures and I go into my backyard, I just take a shovel and I dig a hole. And then take a bunch of sticks that I find and stick it in there and make it look like it's a monster. And then I would play with my Star Wars figures by myself and put on shows and stuff. And I would entertain me,
Uh-huh.
right? Or I was really into movies, right? Or I was really into wrestling. And I would take my board games, and board games were usually in a square box, right?
Uh-huh.
I put the square box down on the table. Then I get like 15 or 20 of my GI Joes, and I would reenact wrestling matches because I watched so much wrestling. Hulk Hogan, freaking Brutus the Barber Beefcake, whatever. I watched all the old school when it was called WWF. I can't even call it WWE. To me, that's a joke. It was WWF. It'll always be WWF. Anyway, I would reenact wrestling matches. Like I would draw out my own tournaments And I would have my action figures play out and fight each other and create tournaments to see who won. So what it I think I learned was how to entertain myself, how to come up with my own ideas, how to look at the world my own natural organic way. Granted, it would cause me to do a lot of stupid things in my life, but the bottom line is that it allowed me to learn how to be creative because no one else was playing with me. So I had to I just played with myself by myself. Like I played video games or I played basketball became the thing I played by myself, even though basketball is a team sport. I would go in my backyard and deal with my problems by playing ball against the invisible guarding, the person who had guarded me who knew every move. And so by playing against an invisible player who knew every move, I got good.
I didn't have a lot of people that wanted to hang around me either. I'm much larger now than I used to be. I was the skinny kid whose ribs you could count in a picture.
Well,
It benefited you. I guess the answer to your question
everything
is
does, right? Everything benefits us in one way or another if we choose to look for it.
that is
But
true.
yeah, totally, totally. I learned that I don't have to depend on other people to make me happy.
Uh,
Although I became very dependent on other people for a while, I just kind of like, you know what, I could do my own thing.
yeah, you were choosing. I guess you found some reality in there somewhere. You were like, oh, we're the Huxtables, we're the happy family when we weren't. You were
Sure,
deceiving yourself.
sure.
But then there came some point where you realized that that wasn't the case and that you could still be happy. I was talking to Robert Snow,
Hmm.
doing one of these interviews, and he says that he was brought up to be very independent at early teenage years. And then he becomes 19, 20, 21, and his mom goes, why don't you need me? And he told her, because you taught me not to.
Hmm.
And that's logical. She wants to be needed. Parents like to be needed, but um, not if we're taught to be something else.
Yeah.
Tell me about some difficult moment. Let's say you graduated from childhood. What was the next difficult thing for you?
After graduating childhood,
Unless you got another one in your teenage years somewhere.
there were several. Um, Getting a girl pregnant at 17.
That's unpleasant.
Yeah, that was interesting. uh,
What did that do to you? What did you
well,
tell yourself at
this
the
is
end?
not that deep,
Uh huh.
but it's funny now looking back on it.
Uh huh.
With time, everything becomes valuable. But so I remember one day I was playing. Okay, let me just kind of paint this picture. Here's my house, and then here's my uncle's house, and then there's this house of a girl. Okay, and her bedroom window was here. My uncle's house had a basketball court right here, and then here was my house. So I would jump over this little brick wall to go into my uncle's house and play basketball in perfect view of this girl who I didn't even know existed, who watched me play basketball every day. And then one day, her sister, who lives in that house, starts dating my cousin, and she finds out that he's my cousin, and then starts asking my cousin about me. And mind you, I don't know what it means to have a girlfriend.
Uh-huh.
All I know is I've seen a lot of pornography because my dad had a drawer full of porno magazines in the bathroom. Like you just pull the drawer open and the drawer was filled with probably 30 magazines. I could pick any one of them and just look at them as a 6-year old, 5-year old, 7-year old. I would go through these magazines.
Uh-huh.
And then I had a friend who lived down the road who also got into pornography. And so he watched pornography and we would talk about it and we would watch it together going, what the hell's going on? It was just like, it was a thing I got exposed to too young an age. And so when this girl tells my cousin, hey, I like him, I'd like to meet him, he comes over to me and says, hey man, there's this girl that likes you, man. You should go over and talk to her. Her name is this and that and the other. I'm like, oh, I don't even know what to do. I'm like, okay. So I go with my cousin. He hangs out with her sister, and then I sit with her, and we just start to talk. And eventually, we became what I thought was boyfriend girlfriend. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know what love is. And then, of course, we start having sex, and she tells me, like, again, I don't know anything. I'm completely naive to this part. She tells me that she can't have children. I remember her telling this, and I was 17. And I thought, okay,
You're supposed to know what that means.
yeah. So I go ahead and do my thing where in a way that leads to a pregnancy,
Uh-huh.
you know? And I'm like, oh, I don't know what's happening. And so I find out she's pregnant. And then I'm like all like, remember I told you my pattern? Deny everything. This isn't happening.
Right.
And it just so happens that she's a survivor. This is a girl who knows how to get on food stamps, child, like, government assistance and so on.
Right.
So she meets another guy who is in the Navy. And she, I think, this is my theory, I think, convinced him that the child that she was about to have was his. So she names the child after him. His last name is on my daughter's name, by birth certificate. But
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I'm happy because I don't want to be a dad. I have no interest in being a dad. So she goes and has this child, then goes and lives with him for a while. For the whole first year of my daughter's life, she is raising my daughter with this other guy. And I am happy as heck. Long story short, one day, and this is probably the hardest day of my life, I think, which was a good thing. I'm sitting in my room and I'm playing video games, and the TV is here. And to my right, there's the walkway to get out of my room. And while I'm playing video games, I looked over here, and it's my daughter. She's 1 year old, and she just stares at me.
Uh-huh.
And I'm playing video games, and I look at her the corner of my eye. And I go, oh shit, she's my daughter. Like I just knew that's my kid
Uh-huh.
who's got the wrong last name.
Uh,
So turned out that the reason why my daughter was there was because her mother decided she didn't want to be a mother anymore, and the guy had checked out. So she asked my mom if she could leave my daughter with us, because nobody was denying that that was my kid, even though her last name was the wrong name.
mm-hmm.
So at 17 and a half, I'm a dad. Or at 18, I'm a dad.
Mm.
All right. 18 years old, I'm a dad. And that was weird. That was really, really weird.
Who'd you go to about that to talk about what that meant?
Nobody. There's
Nobody.
nobody. No, in fact, like I told you, like we covered it all up. We tried to pretend like it wasn't happening. Nobody talked about it. My aunts, my uncles, they all knew, but nobody talked about it. They just
Yeah.
acted like it was a thing.
And as
No
you
one
were
talked about
growing up and your mom was ignoring you and your dad was ignoring you and your brother was ignoring you, who did you go to talk
it.
about that?
No, nobody, nothing, nobody, never. I didn't have anybody. I just ignored it. I had friends that I played basketball with that knew. We never talked about it ever.
Right.
And then I went to college and played college basketball. Never talked about it ever to anyone, even though
Yeah.
I would bring her around or whatever. No one, we would just never talk about it.
And is that because you were afraid of them thinking less of you or because you didn't think they would understand? Because,
Yeah, all the above.
uh-huh. Yeah.
Because I didn't know what to say. I knew it was wrong. I knew there was something off. And but it just no one had talked about that. So for me, the way I dealt with it is I ignored it. I pretended it wasn't happening.
Yeah. You got those blinders well trained by now.
Oh yeah, like I told you, I still do it. At 47, I'm amazing at it. Still,
Uh,
if something's not going the way I wanted, I could just say, you know what, just gonna make it go a different way. And it turns out it's actually not a bad way to grow a business that no one's ever done before.
uh-huh.
Because like for me, my business is something that's never happened before. No one's ever done what I do, and so there's really not a whole lot of paved roads where I
Yeah.
go.
No precedent.
Yeah, so I just act as if, and it so far it's done pretty well. And so anytime I bring somebody new into my business, they have to kind of learn what it is I do, because no one's ever done that before. Why? Because this guy made it up in his head. It just
We're
it made
making it
sense
up
to
as we
me.
go along. That
Yeah,
that sounds much like what I'm doing.
it's kind of
I
funny.
deliver a different set of instructions to my employees almost on a daily basis. Do it this way. No, do it this way. No, let's try this. I get that. Our we all like to think we're unique, and we all are less than
Yep.
we less unique than we thought. At least in our problems, in our programming, that's different.
Yep.
So,
It's funny because what I do is I help people. Like when I look at what I do, I help people do the same things. I help people look at themselves in a way that is conducive to creating what they want to create,
mhm,
not what someone else is trying to create, what they want to create. Like you actually have control. I've learned this. You don't have to allow your external environment to be in charge of what's going on internally. I've earned this knowledge, right? You could just decide on the inside, this is the way you want things to be, and allow the external environment to change, to move or grow or adjust or whatever. I mean, there's been a lot of growing for me to learn how to work better with other human beings. But the core thing is inside of me. It's like if the world around you isn't the way you want it to be, then make it the world you want it to be.
yeah,
And not just up in here, but
and
physically
and I'll
change.
turn, and that's a very empowering thing to choose to believe, because a lot of us, again, we're going to be the, yeah, this world sucks, so I'm going to complain about it. I'm going to resign, and I'm going to turn to vodka
Yeah.
and porn, and and
Vodka, porn, exercise, weightlifting.
oh
There's a lot of people that weightlift not because they like are really into fitness. They're avoiding something at a very high level, intensely, right? Or just checking out, telling, my dad would tell my mom, I'm gonna go to the store and get some milk. Bye.
yeah,
Months later, like where'd you go to get that milk? Another country? What happened?
yeah, did you walk to Canada? Yeah,
Yeah. So, it's like, I think it's really helpful to help people understand what is your coping mechanism. For me, it used to be those things, but what I've learned how to do is to make my business my coping mechanism. The way that I deal with the world is I make the world the way I want to make it, in a way that is uplifting to the people around me. And the only way I know that's working is if the people around me are telling me their lives are better. So I've got this quote behind me. Trying to get out of the
uh,
way. It
I can't
says
read
here,
it. What does it say?
it says, I will let the worlds I impact show me how I impact the world. This is me going, I'm not going to ever be delusional about how I am valued to other people because I'm already delusional about how valuable I am to me. I can make me valuable to me any day of the week, playing video games, playing with my toys, playing with my kids, whatever. But when it comes to impacting other people, I need them to show me because I'm so good at creating whatever reality I want. Unless people around me come to me and say, Hey, Eddie, what you're doing is really making a difference for people. Keep it up. Unless they do that, I will always believe that maybe I'm just living in some fantasy world.
One of my favorite
So,
phrases is that if the only tool you have is a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail.
yeah.
And what you're saying with that phrase is, I'm going to find out what other people need, and then I'll provide them that, rather than. And so it's funny that we go thinking that we have to please the masses, people who really don't care about us at all,
Oh, yeah.
and then neglect the one person who, or the few people who really need us to love them, and vice versa. There's those kinds of examples where people just, we're chasing the wrong dream. And the reason I come up with those is because you talk about people who actually know what they want, and you talk about that like it's a given, but most of us have no idea what we want.
I'd say 95% of people in the world don't know what they want.
Right. And
Even
so,
when they say they know, they still don't know.
and yeah, that actually takes me to your book. You interviewed somebody, you talked in your book about somebody says, well, I want $1 million, and you go, well, why do you want $1 million? And then you find out after talking to them, it's not the $1 million they want.
No, no. It's what it represents. And they don't know. They don't know what it represents. They just think in their head that's the vehicle to get it.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. And that was a moment for me. And I don't remember, I don't, maybe you remember that paragraph, but that was a moment for me that was like, I want to be significant. I think is where you landed on that one.
Yeah.
Is that what you decided you needed to be as significant?
I wanted to know that I mattered.
Hmm.
I mean, really, if I look at everything I've ever done in the last like 3 years, somebody once said, Eddie, I don't know what drives you. And the truth is, it's a desperate desire to matter. But it's not like to matter to other people. Like if people come to say, Eddie, you really matter to me. For some reason, I weird. It's like it's not that doesn't really do it for me. It's when I look at myself in the mirror and I know I matter to someone or I matter to people. Um, I did this in my stories the other day on my Instagram, and I kind of thought, oh my gosh, that's a really cool thing that I did. I didn't really think about this. So this, I'll promise I'll brief on this. This is what I want. So if I say I want $1 million on my bank account, what I really want is what that proves to me personally, not to anybody else. Like I don't want $1 million saying, "Go, hey everybody, I'm a millionaire." No, it's about me. So I did this video where I was talking about this book I read called "The Power of Now"
Uh,
by Eckhart Tolle. I don't know if you've ever read this book.
I haven't read that one.
It's a heavy read, like the wording. It's like I had to read the first two chapters twice because I'm like, this is heavy stuff. But Eckhart Tolle was talking about how he was suicidal and he wanted to kill himself. And he said, I remember thinking out loud, I hate myself. Like he remembers having that thought. And he said, that's when I realized that I am two people. If I say I hate myself, I am two people,
That is two people.
one hating the other, right? And I thought about that, and for me, the way I interpreted it my way, and maybe he mentioned in the book is this way, I'm not really sure, but the way I interpret it is that we are two people, one doing, the other watching and judging. And
And maybe
right,
that provides some insight into how people kill themselves. They're not killing themselves, they're killing that guy.
they're killing the judge. They're trying to shut him up. They can't take it anymore. The judgments are too harsh. And so, what I might, for so long in my life, I looked at what I was doing and was silently in judgment of it. I was like, you're pathetic. You're awful. Look at the way you just said that. You're an idiot. Look at those people. They're not even talking to you anymore. Remember those people you used to talk to? Now they don't even talk to you anymore because you don't do this and you don't do that. It was all the time. And so one day I finally realized that my problem wasn't what other people were thinking. The problem was I was thinking because I was trapped in here, judging everything I did as a bad thing, a negative, a failure. Like I would say curse words. I was like, you fucking suck, asshole. I would say these horrible things.
Mm-hmm.
And so finally, I decided that's my problem. My problem is not the rest of the world. The problem is this guy in here. I need to convince him. I need to convince him, or else I can't continue this life this way. So I just made a decision every single day. I would do something that would help other people until finally this guy would get convinced. And I remember the day that that happened, it was a shock where what happened was I was doing videos every day. And I thought if I would just share a video every day, maybe somebody would find that helpful. And the only way I would know if they would find it helpful is if they commented and say, thank you, that was helpful. So I would do videos every day, hoping somebody would say that was helpful. And one day, finally, someone did. I'm like, okay, cool, it's helping. And then one day, people stopped commenting and started messaging me saying, hey, I like the video. It was helpful. And then one day, somebody said, hey, I like the video, but I have a question.
Uh-huh.
And so when they said, I have a question, I was like, okay, cool, ask a question. And then I started talking with them and I started coaching them. And then that went on. This went on for like 4 or 5 months. And I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know I was building a social media following. I didn't know I was growing a business. I had no idea. I was just trying to shut the guy up inside of my head. So one day my wife, who Angela, you know her, she's just like she's
Uh-huh.
the greatest person in the world. She said, look, if you're going to spend all this time helping people that are total strangers, why don't you just charge them for coaching? And my brain said, I didn't know you can do that. And she goes, no, you can do that. Of course you can do that. They're already listening to you. Why don't you just charge them for your time? And I was like, okay. So I thought about it and I came up with this idea that I would offer coaching with me for 1 month for $1,000. Don't
Uh-huh.
ask me how I came up with that 1,000. It just felt right. I felt like I could really give my heart, my full heart and attention to help the people that wanted to learn what I was learning for me. And I just felt like I could give them $1,000 of value. So I did a video and I said, hey, if you're interested in working with me, here's what you do. You text me. This is my phone number. I gave my personal phone number out. And so you just text me and tell me you're interested. Just text me the word interested. I'll call you and we'll talk. I had 10 people text me in 24 hours.
Nice.
And I got on the phone with all 10 of them, had like 30 and 40-minute conversations, even hour-long conversations, trying to help them, and then told them, okay, I have a program. It's $1,000. You work with me for 4 weeks. We're going to figure out how to get you where you want to be. And I'm going to give you everything I know, and I'm going to help you get there for a whole month. And then after that was over, another 48 hours passed, and 5 of those 10 people signed up. 5 people gave me $1,000 each to coach them to do the thing that I was doing just to shut the internal voice up. When I made $5,000 in 48 hours, the internal guy say, whoa. The internal guy said, I didn't know you could do that. And suddenly the internal voice became a fan. And he inside of my head started going, let's do that again. That was really cool. How did you
And
do that? And I'm like, I
that
don't know, but let's do it again.
that is a gift, because where most of us are going to go with that is, oh, nobody would hire me. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how much to charge. I don't know how much time I'm going to spend with each person. I'm probably not as smart as I think I am, and I'm going to look bad. And I'm going to have to build a website. I'm going to have to do stuff I can't even think of. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So even though the $1,000 may have been a mistake, it was a start. And who knows if it, what the right number was. If it was 500, if it was 5,000, who knows? It was a
I could
start.
have, I know, for all I know, I could have charged 2,000. I don't even know. But that's when the click happened, when I did something that was shocking to the inner judge. And the inner judge is like, I can't judge you anymore. You just dropped $5,000. You just pulled out $5,000 out of your butt and you could help your family with that.
Right.
How about you do more of that now? Now that then the critic became, let's just do more of that. You're amazing.
Uh-huh.
It just went like that switch. And thanks to my wife, of course, me doing something I'd never done before. And ever since that day, but ever since that day, that critic wakes me up every morning and say, let's go help the world. You're amazing.
That's
And
awesome.
I can't tell you or how many people, how valuable that is to
So
have the
that
critic in alignment with the external.
that critic goes from telling you that you suck to telling you, get up, let's roll.
You've
And he's
got something
pushing you in the
awesome.
back. He's got his foot in
Yeah.
your back.
You've
He's
obviously got
shoving you.
something great. You've done something right. Let's just do more of that.
You've got something that the world needs. Go now, go
Yeah.
hard.
I couldn't deny it anymore. I was valuable. And it was proof. There was proof. That was it. I couldn't doubt it anymore.
So you became meaningful. You filled the need for meaningfulness.
To the person that I needed to, this guy right here. Once this guy got on board, the whole world can love me or hate me. It's okay. Because
Wow.
I make fans obviously, and I make enemies. You know, people don't like me. They unfollow me, block me, whatever, unfriend me. So I'm
And
well aware that there are people that get turned off by me, and it doesn't bother me because this guy here is on my side. Once this guy's on my side, the whole world can say, screw you, you're an idiot. And I'll be like, really? Okay, help me get better because this guy's on my side and we're trying to work together. We're trying to
couple
figure
of
out how to be better.
couple of phrases come to mind, and the first one might actually be yours that I stole. It's that your vibe attracts your tribe, and you are perfectly fine with people unfriending you because that just means you're refining your tribe. The
Yeah.
other one is one I hear from lawyers, but it applies to anybody, and that's that what people think of you is none of your business.
Yeah, totally. None of your business at all. Yeah. And I love that. And it's really served me.
What's hard for Eddie right now?
I don't know what, just a lot of things that are wrong, that are hard right now. What's hard? Hard is breaking through current barriers. There's a lot of them. There's barriers with my physical body I'd like to break through.
By
I spent a lot of time doing videos and sitting down like this. Like I've been
uh-huh.
sitting here so you and I have been doing this podcast, what, an hour and a half?
Yeah.
And I sat for an hour here right before you and I started doing another interview with somebody else in another large group.
Oh goodness.
So I spend a lot of time in this chair sometimes. Some days go like this. And so after we're done here, I'm gonna go just put my phone down, disconnect, and just go be with my family, but also try to stretch my body. So I think what's hard for me right now is getting my body where I want it to be. I would love to be able to play basketball again.
Hmm.
Like I like the thought I'm having right now is going to the basket, getting hit by someone who's younger and stronger and faster,
Uh-huh.
because there's a lot of them out there, and being able to muscle up the shot and score on that person,
Uh-huh.
and know it was a foul. Like if a referee was there playing pickup, a referee would blow the foul, and I'd get
You
the
get the and one.
get the N one. Yeah, get the N one. That I think that's right now. That's hard for me. Our church, for those who don't know, I'm an LDS. One of the things that we do in the church is we play church ball. And now that the pandemic's long gone and we're hopefully getting back to church ball again, church ball season usually starts around January, February ish.
Hmm.
And I'm really hoping that we have a church ball team this year and it's October. So I've got 3.5 months to get into somewhat a shape. I know that if I step on the basketball court right now, it's going to be bad. Something bad is going to happen to me physically because my body's just like, how do you go from sitting on your chair all the time and all of a sudden running up and down a basketball court? What do you think? What do you think? You're 20?
So you said
In my head, yes.
you're inflexible. Is that a body physical thing or is that a mind thing?
Oh, it's a well, it's a good point, right? It could be both.
Uh-huh.
Maybe seeing myself as flexible would be a nice flex. Would be a stretch, right? It would be a stretch to see myself as physical. So maybe it's both, you know.
Is that do your employees consider you to be an inflexible business manager?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're inflexible.
Yeah, I'm a little hard. I'm a little freight trainy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, kind of like a freight train. And a freight train gets ideas and changes direction very quickly, and everyone's keep up. And I don't say that with pride. The truth is, I'm kind of like really frustrated. I want that to change, which is why I was very grateful for the person that texted me today.
And that's where I was going. Is she's going, yeah, you're doing X, Y, and Z makes
Yeah,
me this. The inflexibility. Where's adaptability? I'm going to play
it's
strengths
low for
coach
me.
with you.
It's low for me. Adaptability is very low. It's frustrating for me when things change.
Uh huh.
Focus is very high. This is the way that I want them. I want them to work this way. I want them to be successful this way. And when something happens that forces me to change, it takes a long time for me to slow down and change.
For me, adaptability is pretty high.
Yeah.
We're different there that way. Um, what would be your advice to somebody who maybe they have adaptability low and maybe they've got employees telling them that maybe it ought to be a little higher? Somebody, I come to
Yeah.
you.
The advice I would give them is the advice I would give to myself right now, which is, hey, do a little bit more work listening than talking right now.
Uh-huh.
If you're feeling frustrated with the way that you're going, because see, like for me, what I've learned is that in order to get this next level that I want to get in my life and business, I need other people. And so what I'm realizing is I need to be a better listener instead of telling everybody the way should be and telling them to do it that way. And it has to be that way. It doesn't hurt to listen to the people who care about, who give a damn what it is about, what it is you care about. And maybe they have something valuable to offer. The truth is they do because they're unique, just like you. And be grateful that they're still willing to help you, even though you're being a stubborn ass,
Uh-huh.
and like, oh my gosh,
So
doing that. So being a better listener is what I meant with how I,
I'm about to argue with myself, and then you can guide me. The one part of me says, "Hey, I've got adaptability low. I will be me, and adaptability is low for me. So that's me being authentic to me,
yeah,
and I might as well not try to be somebody other than me. That's door number
totally
one.
cool. I love that. How can you be you for others?
Okay, keep talking.
That's what I would. That's the thing. It's like great. Be who you are. I love that. I don't want anybody to be anything other than who they are, but be who you are for other people too. In order to
Okay,
be who you are for other people, you have to actually know what people want. And in order to know what other people want, you have to shut your mouth and open your ears.
and that's door number two, which is what I really want more than necessarily trying to be authentic to whatever I think I am. I really have these goals X, Y, and Z. I want to affect other people's lives. I want to benefit people. I want to make a few nickels, and I want to use my employees' strengths rather than tell them
Yes.
how everybody's going to be.
Yes. There you go.
So
And borrow their adaptability.
your yes, your organization is more than your strengths and your weaknesses.
Oh yeah.
So there's door number one and door number two from my point of view, and they do differ. So which is the correct door? How do you feel about that?
Well, I for me, the correct door is always with what your gut is telling you.
Uh-huh.
And then, like for me, and I hope I'm answering your question. For me, it's like I go with my gut and I try to tell people stories of why I'm going with that. And then I ask them for help.
Okay.
And those who help are the right ones. Those that don't are not.
I can see some examples from my own life where they're kind of sort of doing things the same way, but at the same time extremely different. I was working as an engineer at a radiation engineering company, and no surprise, my boss was an engineer, which means that he was a dork and he was completely incapable of managing or being around people. And yet they put him in a leadership position and he was completely incapable of doing that. So because he was so nervous about his role, he became very dictatorial, and he was like, "Do X," and I was expected to do X like a robot, and I'm like, "No, I'm an engineer. I have a brain. I can think. I've arrived at a place in my life where I'm not the lackey who does whatever somebody says because they say so. I deserve more respect than that." And because of that, eventually I got fired. Um,
Sounds
but
familiar.
but there is a difference between you saying I'm going with my gut. I know that you don't necessarily agree with it, but here's why I believe this. Now please be on board with me. There's a difference between that and saying do this because I said so, damn it. There's a difference there.
Yeah.
I think your way of leading is just a little bit better.
Well, you get people, if people want to be there, you're going to get far more value from them.
Uh-huh.
If they want to be there, if that's what they want to do, if they decided this is what I want to do and this is who I want to be. And then, I think how my friend, I have a friend who said something, but I'm not going to quote it right, so I'm not going to say this person's name, but it was something to the effect of I want inspired leadership, not accountable leadership, something like that. I don't want to be I don't want to be held accountable. I want to be inspired. You know what I mean? Like I want someone to like maybe look at me like when I look at them, I'm like, dang man, I just want to do more right now. Instead of like, oh, I have to do more right now. I want to be around people that inspire me. And so then I'm not great at it, but I try to be as good as I possibly can to be that person for other people. Because that's what I want. I don't want someone to say, hey, this is what I need to get done, and I'm going to pay you this much money if you get it done on this time. And if you don't, I'm not going to pay you. For me, it's like I'd rather tell them a story of what they want them to do and say, hey, can you do it real quick, like in 24 hours? Because that would make me so happy, you know? and, and then them go do it. I would rather that happen.
Yeah. If you were to go back to an earlier version of Eddie, and I'm giving you that DeLorean, you can go back to any year and you can go back and talk to Eddie, and you got a couple of minutes. What year are you going to go back to, and what are you going to tell that dude?
Okay, so that was the year that I got fired twice within a 60-day period. That's the moment that I wrote about in my book.
Uh-huh.
That was when I was really hitting rock bottom and I was feeling like I don't know how I'm going to make money for my family because the only thing I know how to do is work for other people, and it's the last thing I want to do right now. You would think I'd want to go back to that time and give that Eddie some advice, but no, I'm going to let that Eddie suffer because that Eddie, through that suffering, earned what this Eddie is still relying on, right? I feel like if I go back and say something to that Eddie, to shift them faster would only take away the value of what I earned or what that Eddie earned. What I would do, and this is not inspiring at all, in my opinion, is I would go back to that to let's see, 12-year-old Eddie who had Transformers, Star Wars toys, GI Joes, couldn't wait until the next episode of those shows was on because nothing was on demand back then.
Right.
And I would show him the office that I have right now.
Uh-huh.
I would go back to that 12-year-old Eddie and I would show him a glimpse of his future and say, don't you worry. Things are going to be amazing. Just keep sticking it out, kid. You've got something really important to do in this world. That's what I would do. I wouldn't be there at my hardest time. I'd be in that moment where I was most ready to see a vision of something bigger, and then let that kid have all the pressure his whole life to want to be something important that nobody saw, but he saw. Like my whole life, I think I've always felt like I was meant for something big or something important, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
but not knowing how to go about it. That knowledge may have caused a lot of frustration and anger, obviously, but it led me to push myself to be where I'm at now. And I'm grateful for the knowing that I was meant for something bigger and not knowing how, having to figure it out and do it wrong a lot. I'm grateful for the day that I realized I was messing everything up and I needed God in my life. And so, in absolute humility, a contrite spirit, right? A broken heart and a contrite spirit, I came to God and said, I'm done doing this. I know you want me to do something more than this. Tell me, because I can't figure this out anymore. Like, I'm grateful for the Eddie who cared more about the vision of the future than having to be the one in charge of it, you know. So I would go back to that 12-year-old Eddie and put the pressure of a vision of the future where everything is really wonderful, and then not tell him how to do
Ooh, yeah.
it.
That, that's awesome. You're not trying to guide that Eddie. You're not trying to even play a godlike role.
Just let him know he's
You're
meant
you're
for something bigger. Now you got to go figure it out.
you're letting that kid know that he's still got his own choices, but God is in charge. He's being guided through a bunch of
Yeah,
really hard stuff that will not be less hard,
he'll use it
but it
all of
turns
it.
out okay.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And
That's what I would let him know. You are meant. You are special. You are meant for something important, and all this crap you're going through is going to be valuable.
if you let it,
You got work to do, kid.
if you let it. And I,
Yeah.
I have to, in my mind, I'm going to that place of like, you can't just sit and drink whatever and mourn your life. That doesn't get you there. Even if it sounds like, even if you could play Bruce Almighty God, and go back and change something in your life, you wouldn't do it. Even with
No,
the
I don't mind the
chickens.
pressure. It's the telling Eddie what to do. That's the part
Uh,
I wouldn't do. I
yeah,
wouldn't mind saying, "Hey, you got something important to do, kid, and in due time you'll figure it out." You know,
that to
I
me
don't
is a
I, I don't mind putting on the pressure.
to me is a parenting lesson as well,
Sure.
that we can recognize, and find ways to let our kids know that in a real way. Eddie, thank you very much. We definitely have set a record for the longest podcast,
All right, did
and
it.
by about an hour.
All right, I did it.
Yes, you did. And there's more to come. Thank you,
Absolutely.
sir.
More to come. Anytime.
You're the man.